Hello, everybody. This is Suzanne Simard here. I want to welcome you to the information session for the Masters of Sustainable Forest Management at the University of British Columbia. We're really pleased to see you all here today and so glad that you're interested in this wonderful program. I hope today that we can answer any and all of your questions. I'm going to be speaking just for a few minutes and then handing it over to others as we move along. This is at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, and we're on the unceded territory of the Musqueam people. This is a totem just outside our building in the Faculty of Forestry. This is a totem carved by Haida carver Jim Hart, which depicts the story of the residential school system in British Columbia. It's a beautiful totem. So I want to welcome you. I think that you'll have a great experience at UBC. You know, as you know, when you finish this program, you will be qualified to apply to be a forester in training and then become accredited as a registered professional forester. So this is a brilliant program that gets you through very quickly, you know, the basics of forest management. So the next slide shows those of us who will be talking to you today. As I said, I'm Suzanne Simard. I'm the director of this program. I've been the director for about 3 years and a professor in the Faculty of Forestry for about 18 years. I teach forest ecology. Deb DeLong is the program coordinator. She's been coordinating this program since the very beginning. I mean, she was one of the foundational people who developed the program. And yeah, she's really great, of course, a long-term colleague of mine. And Kathleen Kuplin, who is the assistant coordinator. She actually received her MSFM and now is working on her PhD. So she is extremely knowledgeable and extremely resourceful and fun and friendly, and as we all are. And Julie Morley, who is the admissions coordinator, who I think you've all been in touch with as you've worked through your applications. And so I think with that, I'm going to hand it over to Deb DeLong to carry you through the slide, or no, sorry, Kathleen, to talk a little bit about the university. So Kathleen.
Yeah, so I'm just going to go over a really quick agenda of what we're going to cover in the talk today. So I'm going to provide a brief overview of Vancouver and the university and the main teaching building that the Faculty of Forestry uses. And then Deb will take over and she will talk very more specifically about the Masters of Sustainable Forest Management program, and then continue on to talk about what some of the alumni have to say about the program. And then Julie will take over from there and talk about how to apply, tuition and funding, and then we will all take part in the question and answer session at the end. So as we go along, you guys feel free to post any questions that you have into the chat and we'll make sure that we get to those. As well, if you are one of the individuals that sent in a question early, we have a list of all those questions and we'll try to get to as many of them as we can. So, on to a bit of an overview of Vancouver. So the University of British Columbia is located in Vancouver, Canada. Vancouver has been voted the 6th most livable city in the world, and this image here just shows the downtown core of Vancouver. In Vancouver proper, there is over 670,000 people, and there's 2.5 million people living in the greater Metro Vancouver Regional District. In terms of how far away is UBC from the downtown core, it's a 20-minute drive or a 35-minute bus ride. And generally, I would say that Vancouver is a pretty livable city in terms of getting around and movement. But I'm a little bit biased because I've lived here for the past while. And so just moving on to a bit about the university. So UBC or the University of British Columbia, is considered a global center for research and teaching and has consistently been ranked among the top 20 public universities in the world. The image shown here shows the clock tower, but also one of the 11 libraries on campus, this one being Irving K. Barber. So a little bit about the numbers at UBC. So there is over 67,000 total students, over 57,000 of which are and attend the Vancouver location of UBC. So it is in and of itself a pretty big sort of hub in the city of Vancouver in terms of where people travel to every day. So moving on, this is just a picture of sort of one of the main walkways on campus located on University Boulevard and Main Mall. But UBC has over 350,000 alumni living in over 148 different countries. We have over 17,000 faculty and staff spread across 16 different faculties. One of those 16 faculties is the Faculty of Forestry, under which the MSFM program is situated. So the Faculty of Forestry is mostly run out of the Forest Sciences Center, is the main teaching building that we use. And UBC Forestry is ranked consistently in the top 3 forestry schools in the world. And there are over 1,500 students in the faculty, of which over 300 are graduate students, which includes all the professional master's programs that the faculty offers. And then the next picture is just a little inside shot of the atrium at the Forest Sciences Center, which is one of the few buildings on campus to have some live trees and plants that grow in the atrium, as well as it features lots of really cool, innovative sort of wood features as well. It's a pretty nice building to spend time in. And so now I'm just going to pass this off to Deb, who's going to talk more specifically about the Masters of Sustainable Forest Management program.
Thanks, Kathleen. And welcome to all of you from wherever you may be. It's great that you, thank you for having interest in this program. We hope we can answer all your questions today. So the MSFM Ben, do we have a poll to see where they're from, where everyone who's participating is from? I think we would just like to know where you are located in a general sense, and I think Ben is putting up a poll. If you want to answer that, that would be great. It gives us an idea of where the interest lies for this program. So the MSFM program, Master of Sustainable Forest Management, is a 9-month course-based professional program, which is really great. It prepares students essentially for a career as a professional forester or a land manager. And I think one of its great strengths is its short, compact format. And a lot of people really appreciate that because they don't have to take a big chunk out of their lives. They come in, get it done, and go back to their careers. Okay, so is the MSFM program the right place for you? I'm sure a lot of you are thinking about that. Originally, the program was designed to capture people who were interested in a career in forestry, but didn't go through the traditional route like the undergrad in forestry. But they found themselves maybe working in the industry or close to the industry and had an interest in working outside and a passion for environmental stewardship and had an undergrad degree of some kind, and this would enable them to put their career on a trajectory of becoming a professional. And one of the big pluses of this program, it's the only one in Canada that is accredited by the Canadian Forestry Accreditation Board, which means that being accredited by this board means that you can go to any province in British Columbia, in Canada, and become a professional forester in that province with their provincial rules. So even if you don't want to work in British Columbia, you can go back to different provinces in Canada, and it will enable you to pursue professional forester designation. And as well, we are certified by the Society of American Foresters, the SAF. And the same thing applies in the US. You can go back to the US and become a forester in whatever state regulates via the Society of American Foresters. And that's really great because we are the only one in Canada at this time, so we're pretty proud of that. Okay, so in this program, what is it like? What are you going to learn? Well, as Kathleen can attest to later, quite a bit. And you learn, it's quite intensive, quite fast. And but one of the strengths of the program is that we try to spend as much time as possible outside. So of course you'll have the curriculum is a mix of theory and hands-on experiences, but we pride ourselves in the amount of time we can manage to get you outside and in the field and learning about what's going on out there. So the program will, in very general terms, is designed to prepare you to design and implement site level and landscape level plans that integrate all these things, environmental, social, economic components of sustainability. And when you're finished the program, you'll be ready for career opportunities in government, industry, and consulting. Graduates from the 2018 year, and I think essentially the 2019 year as well, the ones that wanted employment in the Canadian forestry sector found it. So the employment rate is very high, which is great. And this year we're on track for the same thing. Several people in the program, even though we're only halfway through, have already secured job offers. Okay, so what courses do you take? I mean, I guess this isn't going to mean a whole lot to you, but it gives you an idea of the kind of things you'll be going through. The first course, 555, is a summer course, and we go through a little bit of everything, fundamentals. Then 556, 557 are in the first term, so we're learning a lot of things about site level. And then in the second term, we do a large landscape level forest management plan with a real client. And this is something we take great pride in as well, as we work as much as we can with actual real clients, people who are out there managing the forest, and we, the students, provide, the client provides a learning environment and the students provide the labor to make and develop and learn along the way all of these kinds of things that are really required out there in the forest industry. So it's very applied, and one benefit of all this is that you get to meet actual practicing foresters and make some really good networking connections. Electives, this is a little bit on the misleading side, but you actually have to take forest economics and forest policy if you haven't done them before. So it all boils down to two courses of electives in the end for most people, which can be taken from, the range of electives is quite broad, from extra studies in silviculture, stand dynamics, forest operations, Aboriginal forestry, and more entomology, pathology, so a lot of different choices for electives. Okay, so as I already mentioned, we spend as much time as we can in the field, but we're also in the classroom. And lucky for us, within our faculty, we have some of the best professors in the world, and they are working on leading edge things in the area of sustainable forest management. One such person who you've already met is, of course, Dr. Suzanne Simard, and her being the director is a real feather in our cap. Let's see, the next slide. And then the next slide. Sorry, I'm going too fast maybe. Okay. Yeah, I think we've already talked about this. Within the courses, we get a lot of fieldwork experience, and then, of course, through working with the clients, we're getting real-world experience with them at both our site level courses and our landscape level courses. So one of the big, the next slide, one of the big reasons that many people come to take this program is that you can, I'm just going to focus in a little bit on BC specifically here. The Association of BC Forest Professionals has given us a really nice deal. You can, if you have a background in science and you sign up with them before the start of this program, you can count all those months that you are in the program, the 9 months, towards your articling period. So that is really great. So it gives you a nice jump on getting down the road toward getting your designation as a registered professional forester, which is really great. Okay. Alumni. I'm sure that you're interested in what some of the alumni have to say. So we have now close to 200 alumni, and they are spread all over Canada and the world. So here's an example of Crispin. He graduated in 2015, I believe, and he had a background in biology and forest engineering, and he had a significant amount of experience as an arborist with the federal government, and he came to do this program, and now you can read that at your leisure, but now he is managing the urban forestry section for the city of Edmonton. Or sorry, that's actually slightly outdated. He has moved from Edmonton to Nova Scotia. So he's been right across the country with his degree. Okay, so on to the next one. QC, as we like to call him, he graduated from 2015 as well. He found his first job. He had, by the way, this is important for some of you perhaps, he had no previous experience in the industry. He just decided that he really would like to work outside, and so he had a background in, an academic background in soil science, I think. Anyway, he found his first job, like an entry-level forestry job in Prince George, working for Kim Forest Management. And then a year later, after he had, some field experience, he was offered a job at BC Timber Sales, so he went to government, and he is in government now, but he is located in Chilliwack as a planning forester. And I think he's since started a part-time MBA, so his career is well on its way. Okay. The next person we have here is Enrico Fionda. He had a very different, next slide, please. He had a very different trajectory than most, I would say, in the MSFM program. He was in the very first class. He had a background in forest ecology, and he was a firefighter at the time. And then he decided he wanted to remain a firefighter and became part of the smoke jumpers in Fort St. John, which is a seasonal position, but then he was able to also work as an arborist in Vancouver and the community forest in the Cusp. So even though he's seasonal, he got his RPF, and he's managed work balance between the seasons in different organizations, and is really loving jumping out of planes. Anyway, yeah. Okay. Thank you. Now I think that's the end of what I have to present, and I will pass it on to Julie.
Excellent. Thanks, Deb. And it's been really neat to see some of the people who are attending today, your names, because I recognize quite a few of you from previous emails. And for those of you that I haven't met yet, it'll be good to make contact. And in these next few slides, we'll go over some of the requirements, how to apply, and I'll give you some tips and tricks of how to make the process go more smoothly for you and for me once I get all of your information. And many of you have sent in advanced questions, and some of them may be covered in these next slides, and for those that aren't, we'll definitely address them in the Q&A. So please remind me later on, and we can cover those things. So program requirements. One thing that I'm so glad that Deb mentioned the QC scenario, because most people, when they read this slide, it scares them because they think, can I really apply? And this is our standard and expectation, but yet at the same time, it doesn't preclude you from applying. So it is a professional master's program, which means that we're looking at the breadth of your professional and academic experience. So we, of course, can't evaluate anything until we see a full application, but just want you to be aware of that, and that if you haven't checked all these boxes that you're seeing on the screen, that do apply, and we can look at the breadth of all of that. I know that Deb and Suzanne will probably be able to answer more of the questions, because many of you have had questions in this regard about background experience and how you can move forward with an application. So minimum requirements technically, so this will be in Canada and the US, is a 4-year bachelor degree in the B+ range, and that's a 76 at UBC. And actually, Ben, if you can move to the next slide. I think that has that. There we go. And I'm just going to quickly let you know as well, these are not specifically set within forestry, because we are under the UBC Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies Office. So these are UBC Senate mandated that apply to all people who are applying for graduate programs at UBC. And a quick note about GPAs is that we do not convert your GPA to the UBC scale. It is what is on the grading scale that's on your transcript. So a B+ at your institution means that you're meeting the general admission requirements. And for international students, the GPA is calculated on your overall transcript, so not just senior level courses. That's only applicable to Canada and the US. And there's a website listed there. I will also post all the links during our Q&A time. And it's a very helpful website that you can go look up your country and your institution and find out what the general admission requirements are for your particular school and country. And so applicants that are applying from a university outside of Canada or the States, and so this is the English language requirement portion of this, is the one time that forestry does actually differ from the graduate and postdoctoral studies listed. We do require a higher English language requirement. And as an example, for IELTS for forestry, it's a band score of 7, and grad studies list theirs as 6. And for TOEFL, the forestry requirement is 100, whereas grad studies will list theirs as a 90. And we'll go through further, because there are exemptions if you went to a school, if you're an international student that went to a school where the primary language of instruction was English, then you don't have to do an exam. And if you're an international student that previously took courses in Canada or the States, then you are also exempt I know that there'll probably be more specific questions in the Q&A time, and that's great, and we can cover those at that time. So now on to the nuts and bolts of how to apply. I'm going to read through the 5 points one at a time and just give you a couple highlights of information in here, and then again we'll cover more specifics during Q&A. So number 1, complete the online application and pay the application fee. So this fee is non-refundable, and it is waived in only one circumstance, and that's if you have citizenship or an address in one of the 50 least developed countries according to the United Nations. And there is a link on the Grad Studies FAQ, which I will provide during the Q&A time. And that includes any applicants via the MasterCard Scholarship Program. And number 2, providing scanned copies of official transcript for all post-secondary institutions you attend. And I get this question so often. It's an official transcript that is sent to you, not to us, and you can scan the PDF and make sure you scan the grading scale on the back, because as many of you know, I send you an email back saying that it's not acceptable unless you include the grading key. And this also includes if you went on any exchange programs, and even if you took one class at a university, I require a copy of the official transcript as part of your application, and it won't be considered complete until that is received. And number 3, listing 3 referees and a minimum of 1 academic reference is required. So this is very important because many of you maybe have been professionals and you haven't gone to school for a very long time. We still require an academic reference, and that is just mandated with the Senate policies. And so we really encourage you that an academic reference can also include if someone has done any professional training, instructors from courses and continuing education. So there's also a list of helpful hints in our FAQ under the References tab that specifically speaks to this if you're having trouble finding an academic reference. And number 4, send in your official language proficiency test results, which we have already discussed. And you'll note that when you are doing the English test, there's a drop-down menu to select UBC. You don't have to select UBC Forestry because that doesn't exist on their system. It just says UBC. And in the application system, your language results are automatically uploaded to your account, and you can actually see that when you log in to your account. And number 5, submit your MSFM letter of intent, questionnaire, and CV. So this is pretty self-explanatory, and there's no hard and fast rules or regulations, but I would like to just remind you that this is the section of your application that you can particularly shine, because it'll show your personality, experience, and your interests can come out. So put your best foot forward when completing this, and take your time when completing, because those letters are really important. And one other helpful hint is if you are applying again for any reason, you've applied in the past, please do not create a new CWL with UBC. It creates a duplicate on the system. So however you previously applied, or your previous number that was associated with your application, please log in using that, and you can just enter a new application for if you're interested in another program. And I will also be in the chat box during our Q&A. I'll put in all the links here, but you can always go through that, and knowing that our deadline, of course, is March 15th, 2021. And a reminder, if there's any MasterCard application scholars who are on this video today, is that your deadline is January 13th. And that includes your reference letters in. So just please be mindful of that. Okay, tuition and funding. So you'll see there tuition is 19,000 for Canadians and over 34,000 for international students. And many people have asked me, why is tuition so high for international students? This is because UBC is a publicly funded university, so approximately 45% comes from government, and a portion of that is from Canadian resident taxes. So that is why. And tuition is payable 3 installments, July, September, and January. And I know sometimes it can be confusing because the program start date on all your documents, it is July 1st, but technically you're not expected to be on campus until August. And there is a $1,000 non-refundable acceptance deposit, which you must pay upon acceptance. So, and that $1,000 then gets credited back to you on your first semester of tuition payments. And that is it for my section, and we'll move on to the Q&A. But I do want to say in closing, oh, actually, sorry, I will back up one moment. Many of you have also asked about scholarships for your professional master's studies, and this is a this is a professional master's program, so there's very few merit-based award opportunities. But what we do have available is clearly outlined on our website, and this includes links to the UBC bursary needs-based funding option. So I do encourage you to look at that link. And in closing, I know that, just know that I'm here to assist you in any part of the application process. And if for any reason you're uncomfortable asking questions in the chat, you can always contact me through the Forestry CBM email address, which I will also post. And I can answer any questions via email, or we can even set up a phone or a Zoom meeting, because I'm always happy to help and excited to see all of your admission packages. So thanks.
Perfect. Thanks, Julie. So we're going to start the question and answer session. So I'm going to, as questions come up in the chat, and hopefully we will get some popping up there, I'm going to try and give those questions preferential treatment, I guess. But since there's none in there, I think that I'm going to start really briefly with talking about COVID. It's on top of everybody's mind, and there was a bunch of questions sent in about that. And so one of the questions was sort of, how did COVID impact the current cohort of the program? And Deb, did you want to launch into that question?
The question was, did it impact, how did it impact
the current cohort of the program?
Is this because, I guess I'm going to assume that the question came up because they want to know if it still will impact the program. We don't know that yet, I suppose, but we decided to go ahead with in-person and went to great lengths to do that. And in the end, it probably, by the time they're done in April, it will probably be best described as a hybrid. So I think it went okay, and we, everybody had to follow very specific safety procedures to do with COVID, like you probably have everywhere in your life these days. So not sure if that answers the question, but
yeah, I think that this, the question is, how were we able to run given COVID? And I think that, Deb hit on that, is that we had a hybrid model this year where some courses were online, but where possible we did teach in person, and that required all of the students to be located in Vancouver or the Lower Mainland to attend those in-person courses and sections. And so moving into next year, I think that to some extent that would continue. I think that there will still most likely be some sort of hybrid, but with the intent of teaching as much in person as we possibly can. And maybe Deb can correct me if she thinks differently. I think that there will be more in-person stuff next year than there was this year.
Definitely. Let's think positively.
Okay, so there was a question that came up in the chat that said, currently working in forestry and have a young family, wondering what to expect for working hours per day on site, external or at UBC, not the total number of hours per day, including homework. Deb, do you want to take the lead on that one, or do you want me to?
Well, I'll start. You can add in if I miss something. Okay, Sam, this is for Sam. Yeah, we have had people in this situation before, and I would say that it would be like a work day, 9 to 5. You can assume that 5 days a week. We try to avoid having we don't run field trips on weekends, for example, except in the first summer course. Throughout the term, I would just count on it being like a work day, 9 to 5, 5 days a week.
Yeah, I think that that's a fair assessment. There are occasionally times when we are going out into the field where we'll leave earlier in the morning. Sometimes there have been days where we've gotten back later in the afternoon. I think the latest I've been on a field trip was until about 7 p.m. one time. Those are rare and not the common. I would say on average it's sort of 9 to 5 days, but there are exceptions where the days are longer. There are also days where they are shorter. So hopefully that answers that question. What else do we have popping up? This one will be for Julie. Do I still need to submit an IELTS result if I graduated from a Canadian university?
No, and I just put a quick note in there, you're off the hook if you're an international student that has attended a Canadian or US university, because that covers your English language requirement. And I do see one other one that is for me just underneath that. So the question is it possible to resubmit my letter of intent to my application without having an effect on admission consideration? Yes, as long as your application isn't yet complete and closed. And closed is meaning that we have already forwarded it to the committee. It means that you can go into your application anytime. You can't remove information from your application, but you can add information to your application. So feel free to go in at any time before it's closed or the closing date, and we will delete your previous entry. So that does mean, though, that if you're adding documents, the latest one that we receive is the one we're going to keep. So if you've done something in error, please send me an email and I'll make sure that the accurate one is on your account.
Julie, it looks like a follow-up question about the IELTS came up asking about degree completion in Ireland.
Yeah, so if you went to school in Ireland, that's fine. Yeah, you won't need to provide an IELTS.
Okay, continuing on the questions that are popping up in the chat right now. If I apply this year and get accepted but determine I may need to wait until 2022, can I defer for 1 year or will I need to reapply? Deb, I think that one will be, or Julie.
Or, yeah, I'll just chip in here, and then if Deb has something else to add, to jump in. Our program does not offer deferrals. The only exception was this past year due to COVID, that we gave everyone a deferral option as we were trying to figure out whether it was going to be online or in person. And so, and indeed we did for a number of our international students that couldn't make the visa requirements because of COVID, then they deferred. But this isn't traditionally a program that we offer deferrals. So you would have to reapply the next year if you decided not to come. And on that note, we can reuse your application materials, including references, transcripts, and you would just have to update the questionnaire and your CV if anything has changed.
Yeah, I think that fully covers that question. Just a really quick one popped up as to if this session is recorded. It is recorded, and there will be a link sent out to the recording when the session has finished. So for anyone that needed to mute or their call dropped or anything like that, you will be able to listen to all of us talk in great detail after this. Julie, there's another question for you. You seem to be getting lots of them. More technical question for transcript upload.
Yeah. So I'll quickly look at that. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. So any PDFs of transcripts, it's fine as long as because we can tell right away what is even if it's in black and white or color. It really doesn't matter because we can see right away what is an official document and what isn't, and we've trained our eyes too if there's any falsifications as well. So yeah, so as long as it's an official transcript, then scan it and upload it, but just make sure that you include the grading key on the back.
Perfect. All right, since we've caught up in the chat box here, I'm going to jump to one of the pre-sent in questions that simply says, can this program be done remotely? That's been pretty well covered, is that no, the program cannot be done remotely, which sort of leads into part of the reason why that was never fully considered with COVID was in fact because of the number and amount of field components that we have in the program. And someone asked, how much time do you spend in the field versus the classroom, and what kind of field work do we do in the program? Deb, did you want to take the lead on that one?
Okay, amount of time in the field. Let's see, we spend essentially the first 2 weeks of the program, more or less, are in the field. Then we have at least a 1 week long field camp, and this coming up year we hope to have perhaps 3 to 4 to 5 field days strewn across the 2 terms, and then we have another field trip in the winter that's usually 3 to 5 days. And to be honest, we're always trying to increase this because people seem to get a lot out of those kinds of sessions. Was there a second part to that question?
What kind of field work do we do?
Field work. Oh boy. Well, from walking around the field, listening to people speak about what you're seeing, to actually performing field measurements and collecting data for the work that you have to do. That's pretty basic, but yeah.
Yeah, I would say that there's a huge breadth of types of field work that get covered, from observational skills to going through some of the more, technical surveys. But it tends to be at a higher level. We don't necessarily expect students to leave and be experts in completing very specific types of surveys. But we make sure that students have access and have looked at sort of the appropriate forms and how to conduct a wide range of different measurements.
I would say the most important thing here is just to be aware that you're outside, and you need to be comfortable being outside all day and wearing, inclement weather, cold, rain, snow even, and be comfortable with that.
Yeah, absolutely. We have another couple questions pop up in the chat here. One says, is there a significant proportion of students currently in this program that entered immediately after undergrad, or are the majority of students mid-career professionals? So I can start off on that one. When I entered the MSFM program, I came straight out of undergrad and didn't have any experience or previous knowledge about forestry specifically. And I would say that there's always a group of students that come straight out of undergrad. There's always a group of students who are mid-career in forestry. There's always a group of people who are switching careers in getting into forestry. And I think in my year of the cohort, the youngest person was, well, I know who it was Adam. I think he turned 21 or 21, maybe turned 22, and I think the oldest person was in their 50s in my year of the program. So a really big range. Deb, do you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I would say the orthic student is actually an early career, not mid. They may have been introduced to forestry via tree planting or firefighting. They haven't really got a career launched yet, perhaps, but they realize, they all of a sudden discover it as a career and they want to pursue it in a more formal way. That would be the orthic student in my mind.
Yeah, actually, so I'm thinking of a story from one of the students this year who I had a great chat with them, and they mentioned that they hadn't gone into forestry before because they didn't realize that foresters looked like them. And this was a female student talking. She realized that the range of sort of people and topics covered in forestry, and that's sort of how she ended up steering towards the MSFM program. It's just interesting. All right, I need to scroll up in the chat here. What are the expected?
I see he asked for the exact program dates. This year, it's not August 1st. The program actually starts August 23rd and goes to roughly mid-April. So it's even a bit shorter than those dates there, usually.
Yeah, there is always pre-reading stuff over the summer as well before the start time on the 23rd. How does relevant years of work experience count in the selection process? Deb or Julie, do you want to take that one on? Or Deb, I guess.
Yeah, Deb.
Yeah, well, it counts. Let's just put it that way. But it's not really, these application packages are each very individual, and your whole story, your whole package tells a story to us. And there are still people who are coming into the program that have none or very little experience. However, there are some that come in that have quite a bit, and it has helped their application. So it really is very dependent on the whole picture that you provide us.
A question about what is the questionnaire like, and what is the essay like in the application process?
Yeah, so I'll address that one. So the questionnaire is a very simple fillable PDF form. It just has check boxes, just letting us know what your experience and background is. And so that it really is very short. And the CV, there's no essay question, but your letter of intent, yes, I guess that's an essay, in essay form, but your letter of intent is yeah, just where you give your story and why you're interested in the MSFM program. And yeah, so like I said before, it's sort of your place to shine, to really let the committee know why you're interested in, and because your CV covers all the background points. So yeah, so it's really up to you how you present, and maybe Deb has some helpful hints about that.
Or maybe Deb does not. Okay, well, we'll go into the next question, and I know that this was one that also got sent in early, so we can cover it, and it's, will the skills learned in the MSFM program transfer well into Atlantic Canada, or are there a lot of BC-specific information? Can I complete the program in BC and then move back home to get my RPF certification in Nova Scotia? Deb? Are you muted? Okay, well, I can't hear Deb, but I can sort of take the lead on this question. And I would say that we have MSFM alumni sort of across the country, and that shouldn't be a limiting factor. I think one thing to keep in mind is that since we are located in the Lower Mainland, when we do go out and do field work, most of the tree species and sort of the various more detailed examples that we use do tend to be focused on the coast in BC. But I think it's also that the program really aims to build sort of intro level foresters who are able to ask the right questions and have sort of the skills, these observational skills. So it seems as though Deb is having some technical difficulties right now. But we have definitely had people from out east come and take the program and then go back out east, including into the Atlantic provinces, into Ontario, and all across Canada. Oh, Deb is sending me messages. She will hopefully pop back into the chat and join us soon.
And Kathleen, I'll just take that next question just as clarification about the English proficiency certificate. Okay. So I've put a link in the chat of the grad studies list of all the approved institutions, or not institutions, but the acceptable English language tests. One note is that you can also have an exemption for your English language requirement if, let's say, your country listing on the grad studies site says you need a language test, but most of your courses were taught in English. If your school writes an official letter stating and signed and everything by the registrar just saying that your courses were in English, then that is acceptable for us as well.
Perfect. Thanks, Julie. All right, I'm going to jump back to some of the questions that were asked beforehand. So one of them is there sufficient field work / experience to become a forester, even if I have little or no prior forestry experience? Yes, absolutely. That was the situation that I was in the MSFM, when I entered the MSFM program, and I am now a registered professional forester here in BC. I think that if that question means, can I immediately leave the program and be a fully fledged forester based on the technical experiences? No, you will still need to sort of spend some time out in the field getting that work experience, building the sort of regional, local knowledge of where you're working as well, but it sets you very well on that career path to be a registered professional forester in BC and anywhere in Canada. So Julie, some of the, there was a chunk of questions that I know you very briefly sort of touched on about funding opportunities, and you directed the students to, or the applicants to look at the MSFM webpage. Did you have anything that you wanted to add about funding opportunities? Is there full scholarships, grants, partial scholarships?
So really, the short answer is no. But if you go onto the website under our tuition and funding page, you will see some awards that are listed, but those awards are applicable to people who have already been accepted into the program. So for those of you who are applying to the program thinking that if there's a scholarship to apply for prior to being accepted to the program, unfortunately the answer is no. There's very limited opportunities, but you can look at the UBC bursary site. That is also an option, but this is a professional program, and the base and usually with UBC Forestry and all grad studies at UBC, it's the thesis-based research programs that have the pre-funding.
Perfect. It seems that Deb may be back in the conversation. I'm not sure. I haven't heard her speak yet, but we'll keep going with some of the questions and see if she pops in and says something.
Yes, I'm back.
All right, wonderful. So I think there was a large chunk of questions that got sent in early that were asking about sort of very specific, like my background is an X, am I eligible to apply? And I think that for those specific questions, some of them, if you are still concerned or don't quite know if you're eligible to apply, I would highly recommend reaching out to either Julie or Deb or myself. Deb, I don't know if you wanted to sort of tackle how should the best way to ensure that applicants meet the educational requirements to apply for the program.
Yeah, the easiest way to do this is to send Julie an email, and she will forward it to me or to the right person to answer those questions. I think that's usually how we do it. Right, Julie?
Yes, that's right.
And so in that branch of questions, there were a few sort of broader ones, as does a forest tech diploma meet the requirements of an academic background in forestry? Deb?
Can you repeat that again?
Does a forest tech diploma meet the requirements for an academic background in forestry?
No, not by itself. You do have to have a university level bachelor's degree as well, or yeah.
And then there was another one that says, do you recommend a 2-year forest tech diploma before applying to this program?
That depends on your specific story and background. I would have to talk with you directly about that.
Yeah. And then I'm just going to ask one more question that's from this sort of chunk that says, for an applicant with no background in forestry, is there any specific courses you recommend taking before applying? I would say that as long as you meet the educational requirements as set out on the MSFM page with the information about that, then no, that should be sufficient. But Deb, I don't know if you wanted to add on to that.
Yeah, there are quite a number of different combinations and permutations of courses, and it's very specific to you as an individual. So if you have questions about that, you need to email myself or Julie, and I can set you on course to figure out which courses you need to take. There was a question in the chat earlier about statistics and economics, and the answer to that would be yes. You do need to take an introductory level microeconomics and an introductory level statistics course before the start of the program.
Perfect. Okay, so to jump topics here quickly, there was a question of, can I work full-time while completing the program? No, the program is full-time. Can you work part-time while completing the program? Every year we have had some students work part-time while completing the program. I think that the biggest thing is that sometimes stuff can change in the program very quickly and on the fly, so the more flexible your part-time employment is, the better. Deb, would you say anything different?
No, I would agree.
Yeah. And then what are the expected career options for job titles of recent graduates?
Sorry, can you say that again? I didn't hear the
Sort of what are the expected career options upon graduation or typical job titles of recent graduates?
Oh my goodness. I'm not sure there's typical really, but what I would say if I look at everyone who's graduated from the program is expect to have an entry-level position, at least for the first year or two. Because when you leave the program, you are still considered a forester in training. You're not a registered professional forester yet. You still have a ways to go. And the jobs do reflect that. But one thing I can say is there's a small handful of people who come in with their articling already complete, and by the time they're finished the program, they're RPFs within a month or two of finishing all the exams that are part of the association's requirements. But that's less typical. There's a big spread of where people go. People go to government, consulting, industry, even NGOs. You know, it really depends on what you want to pursue as well. Like at the moment, you guys are very lucky. There are a lot of opportunities, so you can, try to pursue particular positions that you are more interested in, because there are, at this time at least, there are quite a number of positions out there.
Perfect. So there's a question that popped up that said, are the certification requirements different in each province? How long does it usually take to get certified after graduating if working full-time towards it?
I am going to half answer that question. And really, yes, the program, you can get certified or become an RP or whatever they are called in each province, usually professional forester. Not every province has a registration body. Most do. And you can become registered, but the way and the rules around all of it are different in every province, and they keep changing. So my advice to you is, if you are interested, I think someone asked a question about Atlantic Canada. If you are interested in going to a particular province, you need to contact their association and find out what they say directly, like today, because it could have changed in the last 6 months, about our program and what it would take to become registered after doing this program. But we are certified, as I mentioned before, by the Canadian Forestry Accreditation Board, which is a national board. So it means that your education at UBC, Faculty of Forestry, is enough to become a professional in any province in the country.
Great. I think that was sufficiently answered. I think it was a great answer. How many students per class in the program? Deb?
25 maximum.
And then
And I'll just jump in. I also put a quick link to all of our stats. And so if anyone wants to visit that, it gives all the numbers of exactly how many people apply each year, and it's the last 5 years of data, I think. So.
Perfect. Thanks, Julie, for linking that in there. We have another question that's along the jobs after the program, and it's what resources are available to help with job placement?
Okay, I guess I can answer that. During the program, we offer things like a resume and interview workshop, and usually someone from the Human Resources Department of West Fraser or Can4 or something like that comes and helps us run that workshop for the students. And we help fine-tune their resumes and cover letters. And honestly, I get to know you fairly well and try and connect you with the right organization or the right person that you may be able to get the right job for you with.
Yeah, and I think that the other thing to add on is that there's sort of a growing body of MSFM alumni who are, they know the kind of people that come out of the MSFM program, and quite often jobs get, an alumni who's working somewhere will know of a job coming up in their company and will pass the information along to me or Deb or post it somewhere where MSFM current students and alumni can see those opportunities as well. We talked about employment rates. I don't know if you know this one, Deb, but where do most graduates, well, I know it as well. Where do most graduates end up working geographically?
Most would be BC. Do you
Yeah, most
BC or just BC versus the rest of Canada?
It was just broadly, yeah, I'd say most are in BC, most are within Canada, but we do have graduates all over the world. I think we have a graduate in New Zealand and in Scotland and maybe one or two in China. So there are graduates all over the world, including the United States. I mean to miss that one. Are graduates prepared to start a field work oriented job right away?
Yes.
I'll jump in and add to that. So I had no field experience coming into the MSFM program. I loved spending time outside, and I left the program, and my first job immediately out of the program was basically 100% in the field. I was in the field every day for 8-hour days, hiking up and down hillsides. It was lovely. It was wonderful. I really did enjoy it, but I would say that you are definitely prepared to start working in the field if that's what you want to do. Let me just look at these last. For people who are currently completing their last year of undergrad, Julie, do you have a recommendation for when they should submit their application?
So, yeah, so you're more than welcome, of course, to apply if you're in your last year. And your GPA is going to be calculated based on your senior level courses to date. So, meaning whenever you apply and the transcript, official transcript you upload, even though other courses are in progress, we're taking our calculation from what is senior level courses existing on your application. Or if you're international, then it's on your overall transcript. So that also means that until your application is closed, you could, and you got extra marks on an official transcript, you can upload a revised new official transcript. But once it's closed, it's closed. So even if you had marks after that, we're going off what you included in your application.
Perfect. Thanks, Julie. So we're 6 minutes overtime, so I'm just going to ask or go to one last question, because I think we covered all the ones in the chat and we've covered most of the ones that were submitted early. So there's one question that I thought would be useful to tackle, and it's, what is it like to be an MSFM student in the MSFM program? What is the day-to-day like? So I'll start off with this one, and if Deb wants to add anything in. So we talked a bit about sort of daily time expectations, is that, you know, we'll ask you to be there in person anytime between sort of 9 and 5, consistently, 5 days a week, excluding weekends besides the first summer course. But in terms of being a student in the MSFM program, I'm going to say it's very intense. It is 9 months, it is accelerated. You wake up thinking about trees and forests and management, and you go to bed sleeping like thinking about trees and forests and management and statistics. And it is a lot. You're in a program of people who are interested in the same things. And the number of times when I was in the program that I sat with a group of my classmates, you know, having a beer or a coffee, and we'd always just end up talking about trees and forests and management and all sorts of things. So I think that to be a student in the MSFM program, it's very intense, and it's great because you learn a lot from the courses and from the instructors, but you also learn a lot from your peers in the program, and you learn different perspectives and what they've done in forestry. And it does, I would say very confidently, it takes up a lot of time and thought, even outside of being in the classes. And you know, I remember when I was in the program, there were days where I was at the building from 7 in the morning till 7 at night doing work. But there were also days where stuff ended early and almost the whole class would go and sit and just chat and hang out. But I think that what the takeaway is that it's intense, and it's maybe not for people who are not passionate about forestry. Deb, did you want to add on anything?
Yeah, I want to add that it actually looks to me like the students are having a lot of fun a lot of the time, and you have some lifelong friends.
Yes.
I see that
Absolutely.
in the alumni. They stay in touch, and they made lifelong friends through the whole thing.
Oh yeah, I guess I should emphasize that. I had a blast in the MSFM program. I worked hard, but it was a lot of fun, and I definitely, like, people from my year of the cohort, like QC, who we saw earlier, I'm still in contact with him. Adam, like there's tons, at least a quarter of the people in the program I'm still in contact with and are good friends with. So it was a lot of fun. So there is a recording of this session, and I think that we're sort of wrapping it up at this point. That will be made available to everyone in attendance and who signed up to be on the mailing sort of list. I think that will get sent out shortly after this, but I think that's going to wrap it up for the question period and for this talk. I just wanted to thank everyone for for coming out here, for listening to us, for asking great questions, and hopefully this helps you out as to if you still have questions, who to message, and we'll make sure that we can answer those. Deb, do you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you all for attending, and I look forward to potentially meeting some of you in person someday.
Perfect. Thanks so much. I think with that, we will end this session.